Hey guys, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing great today. So Tekken fans, we've got something interesting to talk about because Bandai Namco just rolled out a fresh update for Tekken 8. And while it's a smaller one compared to the massive patches we've had recently, it's definitely worth chatting about. I know a lot of you are curious about what's been going on with the game lately, especially after that big balance patch that came earlier this month with Armor King finally stepping into the roster. Well, this latest update, yep, the one that just dropped, is more of a fine-tuning kind of deal. It's one of those clean up after the storm updates where the developers go in and fix the small things that slipped through in the last version. So even though it's not adding a new character or huge gameplay features, it's still important for keeping everything smooth and consistent, especially for those of us grinding ranked or labbing character interactions every day. Now, for those who've been paying close attention to the game since the Armor King patch, you probably noticed that while most of the community was thrilled to have him back, a few players pointed out some inconsistencies, certain moves behaving strangely, labels showing the wrong names, and just minor stuff that doesn't seem like a big deal until you start relying on those details in competitive matches. And that's exactly what this update addresses. It's small, sure, but these little adjustments make the experience feel more polished overall. Think of it like Bandai Namco tightening the bolts after upgrading the engine. The biggest headline change, and the one most people will immediately recognize, is the fix related to Armor King. In the move list, one of his attacks was labeled incorrectly. It was showing as Brilliant Brawler Kick instead of what it was supposed to be, Double Arm Swing. It might sound trivial, but for players who study frame data, move properties, and command lists religiously, stuff like this matters. If you're practicing combos or referencing move names in guides or tutorials, having a wrong label can throw people off, especially for new players who are still learning a character. So, it's nice to see Bandai Namco taking the time to clean up those kinds of issues instead of letting them linger. But that's not all this patch does. The developers mentioned that this update also fixes move behaviors that weren't properly addressed in the previous version. Now, what that really means is they've gone back and checked some of the attacks that might have had unintended hitbox issues, inconsistent tracking, or weird animation interactions. You know those situations where something should connect but doesn't? Or a move tracks in a way that looks just slightly off? Those are usually the kind of things that get patched in these smaller updates. And let's be honest, anyone who's played Tekken 8 since launch knows this game has been getting consistent love from the devs, frequent balance passes, character tuning, and even community-driven adjustments based on feedback. It's honestly been one of the more responsive post-launch update cycles I've seen from Bandai Namco in years. If we zoom out a little and look at the broader context, the last major patch introduced Armor King and brought a wave of changes to multiple characters. That update was huge. It didn't just add new moves and balance tweaks. It also reworked some move properties for existing fighters, which means they probably had to touch a lot of internal systems in the game. Whenever you make that many adjustments at once, there's always a chance something slips through the cracks. That's likely what this new update is cleaning up. So you've been noticing weird stuff since the Armor King patch, maybe a move that behaves differently than before or some strange visual glitch. It's very possible this update is the one that addresses it. Now, for all my competitive players out there, let's talk about what this means for you. From what's been reported so far, this patch doesn't bring any new balance changes, so you don't need to worry about your combos suddenly dropping or your favorite character feeling different. This is more of a maintenance update, like a tune-up for the game's internal systems. But even if it's small, it still matters. For example, correcting a move label might sound like a tiny fix, but it helps with tournament communication. When players or commentators refer to moves during matches or analysis, accuracy is important. It helps the entire competitive scene stay consistent, and that contributes to a more professional and organized environment overall. Another interesting point worth mentioning is how Bandai Namco is handling their version naming system. If you've noticed, sometimes the number you see in your console's update list doesn't exactly match the version listed inside the game. For example, your PlayStation might say you downloaded version 2.006.002, but inside Tekken 8's in-game menu, it might show version 2.06 or something similar. That's totally normal. It's just how the development and publishing systems track builds separately. One version number is used for distribution and certification across platforms, while the in-game number reflects the main update line. So don't get confused if you see those two numbers not matching perfectly. It's all the same patch. Now, the timing of this update is interesting too. We're getting closer to the end of the year, and Bandai Namco has hinted that instead of going straight to another full update like 2.07, they might be jumping ahead to something like 2.08 later this year. That means they're probably reserving that one for bigger content. Maybe another character, stage, or seasonal event. So this smaller update feels like a bridge, something to tidy things up while they prepare for the next major drop. And honestly, I really appreciate this approach. Some companies wait months before patching small issues, but Bandai Namco has been great at pushing out fixes in between the major updates. It keeps the game stable and makes sure small bugs don't pile up into bigger frustrations later. It also shows that they're actively monitoring player feedback. Tekken players are vocal. If something's off, the community spots it within hours, and the devs clearly take that seriously. Now let's talk specifically about how this update might affect certain types of players. If you're a casual player who just enjoys hopping into some matches online or playing story or ghost battles, you might not even notice most of these changes directly. You'll just experience a smoother, more refined game overall. But for competitive players, those grinding ranks, entering tournaments, or recording tutorials, this patch can make your life easier. Even subtle move behavior fixes can impact spacing, combo consistency, and matchups in subtle ways. For Armor King mains, this patch is basically your mini moment of spotlight again. Having his move list corrected and potential minor behavior tweaks ironed out means he's now more reliable in both casual and competitive play. Armor King's return was one of the highlights of Tekken 8's recent updates, and the community response was overwhelmingly positive. He feels great, looks great, and plays like a perfect evolution of his legacy style. So, this patch ensures that his presentation matches his gameplay, which is a nice finishing touch after the hype of his release. Looking forward, though, it's clear this patch is just part of a larger ongoing roadmap. Bandai Namco's not done yet. They're clearly setting up for the next major wave of content. If we take their past release patterns into account, December or early next year might bring another big update, possibly even a new character. The team has been consistent about keeping the pace roughly every few months, alternating between character drops and balance adjustments. And based on early rumors, 2.08 might be the next big one to watch. But for now, this small patch just ensures that the current build is running as cleanly as possible. I also want to mention how this kind of patch reflects the overall health of the game. Tekken 8 launched strong, but every live service or evolving fighting game depends on constant refinement. The fact that Bandai Namco is maintaining this steady stream of updates, addressing even minor move name mistakes, shows that they care about quality control. It's not just about big, flashy content drops. It's about attention to detail. Players remember that kind of consistency, and it's a big reason Tekken 8 has stayed strong months after release. Now, I've seen some comments online where people ask, why even bother releasing a patch just for small stuff? And honestly, that's a fair question. But think about it this way. When developers patch small issues quickly, it prevents them from snowballing into bigger problems later. Imagine if they ignored little labeling errors or move inconsistencies for months. That stuff starts stacking up, and before you know it, you have a messy situation where players are using outdated information or reporting bugs that should have been fixed ages ago. Smaller, frequent updates are healthier for the long-term balance of the game. Also, from a competitive integrity standpoint, this level of maintenance builds trust. When players see that the devs are keeping up with the details, it encourages people to keep playing, to invest time in mastering characters, and to trust that the game won't randomly break or behave inconsistently in tournaments.